I had little people watching me, so I had to be mum.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen.
You know,
Yep.
that was a huge driving force,
Yeah.
that I knew I had to be strong for something more than myself.
You're listening to Property Investor Tales, stories from the front yard. Here's your host, Tabitha Bright.
Hello and welcome to Property Investor Tales, stories from the front yard, where I get to speak to property investors from around Australia about their investing journey. My name is Tabitha Bright and I'm the head of coaching here at Positive Real Estate, where we help people build wealth through property. With over 8,000 clients across Australia and New Zealand, there are some incredible stories to tell, which hopefully make your investing journey that little bit easier. My guest today is a wonderful lady called Alison Newman. Now, I do need to pre-frame. This is a trigger warning. We do discuss adult content and we do discuss domestic violence. So please note there's a trigger warning associated with this episode. We're going to talk today about some of the challenges that Alison went through on her journey to invest successfully, her mindset, which is incredible, and the lessons that she's learned along the way. It is a heartfelt, honest account of how you can overcome adversity in incredibly challenging circumstances. So please sit down, put your headphones on, get your cup of tea, and be prepared to be inspired by Alison's story. Enjoy this conversation with Alison Newman. Hey, Alison, lovely to have you here and welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Pab. Great to be here.
Fantastic. And we're a bit lucky to have you today because you've got a story that I think it's really important to share, particularly pertaining to women, although, you know, it happens to a broad section of society. But we'll get into some of that nitty-gritty in a moment. And I think if it's okay with you, we'll start off. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, about your profession, a little bit about your personal background? Because I know you work for government. Tell us a little bit about, where you're at.
Sure. Well, I am a single mother and I have two beautiful young boys, so 4 and 6. So yeah, look, I am in a secure government job, which I love. I've been doing it for 8 years, although it does require me to move around quite a bit.
Yep.
But before that, I was actually in banking and finance, but not in lending. I was actually a debt collector.
A debt collector. Tell me about that.
Yes. Well, I was in commercial recovery and secondary debt collection. So if the banks couldn't find their lender, I would find them. So sometimes we would find people in witness protection. We would find people, a few years later after they changed all their numbers, email addresses, that sort of thing. We had our ways of finding people.
Location people. Huh?
Yeah. So professional stalking, I think. It was a good job, but I also had my own mercantile license, so I could actually go door to door and repossess people's cars, people's trucks, businesses that were closing down, go and get all the chattels, auction those off. Yeah, so look, I was involved with everything for when finance goes wrong, for individuals, for business, that recovery side of it. So there's only so long you can do that for.
Yeah, I was going to say, because what do you think the skill set is that's required? Because despite having to, my immediate thought is you have to be quite a tough person, but you'd also need empathy for people's situations and negotiating and people skills, I would imagine, because not everyone's going to be pleased to see you for a start.
No.
Yeah.
Look, before something gets to the stage of, recovery and repossession and being closed down, like numerous times they try to refinance and find every other way to get around it. That option is always there. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you do have to have really thick skin because you do cop a lot of verbal abuse on the phone, that's for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine. And so
Yeah.
how did you get into property?
I always had a love of property. Like when I was a little kid, I was actually born in Hunters Hill, New South Wales, but
Yeah.
yeah, but grew up. We actually moved there, and they sold in Hunters Hill. I don't even want to think about what that would be worth now. And grew up in sunny Brisbane in Queensland. So when I was young, we used to go, to all the houses being built and just, ride your bikes and explore. And I'd always go through and imagine where all the rooms would be built and where the kitchen would be. And I just loved that when I was little.
You had an affinity with property. Yeah.
And then when I was about 14, we had to move home. So I helped my parents actually find a new home. So we moved from Sunnybank. Traffic was getting quite bad over to Rochedale because my dad he was semi-retired, but he actually got cancer. So he was quite ill.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, so that was rough. And then when I was about 16, I started getting interested in property. So I watched a house across the road, directly across the street from my balcony, and it was for sale for $87,000. And I remember, $87,000, and I thought, you beauty, I'm going to start saving my pennies. So when I'm old enough to buy, I'll have $87,000.
So how old were you then?
I was 16.
16. Yeah. God, you know what? At 16, all I could think about was, do you know what my biggest aspiration in life to be when I was 16? I wanted to be the person that did the spray painting, like the really cool pictures on hot rods. Nothing to do with property. I wasn't that clever.
That's pretty cool.
I don't know where I got that from, by the way. But anyway, back to you. So you knew you had to get into the market. I take it if you're 16 and you're excited about property.
Yeah, definitely. That. But by the time I was over 18, I think I was about 19 or something, that same property was for sale again, $239,000. So I was absolutely devastated that I hadn't. I was like, where's my $87,000 property?
Right. So in a very short period of time, you witnessed the power of the property market.
Absolutely. And it didn't really occur to me that that was a good thing. All I was thinking at the time was like, well, how am I going to afford that? So, yeah, but look, at the time, as I mentioned, my dad had cancer, and my older brother at the time had given me a book, The Rich Dad, Poor Dad book by Robert Kiyosaki.
Very good.
So that really got me started.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just fell in love with reading finance books from there. And I just, I knew I had to find a way to get my own house. So I did. I managed to a few years later. Look, my dad actually on his deathbed told me some solid advice, probably the best advice he's ever given me, and said, just get a roof over your head and your life will be okay. So
sound advice.
Yeah, went from there. Yep. Yeah. So look, when I was about 23, I managed to buy my first property.
Whereabouts was that?
Well, I thought I was pretty clever doing it at 23, but it wasn't the greatest of decisions. So I spent $305,000 and I bought a house in Springwood in Logan.
Oh, yes. 305.
305. So I basically knew that I wanted to get a property, but I couldn't afford what was in Brisbane. So I kept getting pushed out. So yeah, that was in 2005, and it was just prior to the GFC. So I think I actually paid above what I wanted to pay. I didn't really have an understanding of the markets, but I knew that I had to just get property. So I did. So I made some classic mistakes, but I knew I was a hard worker, and I knew that I was ambitious. So I thought, surely I'm going to be promoted. I also couldn't afford the mortgage on my own. So I convinced my boyfriend at the time, the banks want two people. How about it? I knew that maybe our long-term goals didn't align. as much. But, at the time, I thought that was the best way to get the property. And I also thought the first property that you bought had to be your principal place of residence. I just thought that's what you did.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
what were the interest rates you were paying back then? If it was pre-GFC, they would have been relatively high. What, 8% would they have got up to?
Yeah, I think it was about 7% at the time. And I wasn't too sure what I wanted to do. So I did half fixed, half variable.
Yeah.
I was a bit all over the place. And look, I had other friends that were renting the rooms for cash and, just to make ends meet. And I thought, yeah, that's going to count as income. But no, it didn't.
No, not officially.
Yeah, that's right. So
what happened with the house? Where did you end up?
Well, I ended up knowing that I then needed to start getting more houses. Because I started reading actually Steve McKnight's book, the 0 to 130 properties in 3.5 years. So I thought, I've got to do that. It's got to be all about positive cash flow properties. So it doesn't matter where they are, doesn't matter what they are, as long as they can pay for themselves, we're good to go. Let's get in. Went back to the bank. What can I borrow? 100,000 with a co-borrower. Okay, 100,000. What can I buy? I know there's a little tin shed going for 100,000 down in Horsham. It's got a tenant in there that's been there for 10 years. So he's in there long term. Looks like that's going to be positively geared. I'm going to make $10 a week. Let's do it.
Did you do it? Can I tell you, I reckon, Alison, this is a really important point. I reckon this is the key thing that all beginner investors do. We start chasing cash flow, and maybe it's not as predominant at the moment because interest rates are low. So you can hold blue chip property and it doesn't bleed your reserves, right? But back when you and I were, in our early stages of investing in the late 90s and early 2000s, interest rates were higher. And I mean, prior to that, they were in the 17% and so forth. And so we had to look, it drove us to different types of property. And the amount of people that I talked to that started investing when you were investing did stuff like that. They ended up in mining towns. I ended up in regional. We have these stories where often we'll trade stories at Positive Real Estate, like the one that got away. I looked at a block of units in Liverpool for $1 million. There were 8 units in this block. And I chose to buy in regional New South Wales in this tiny little town, several properties rather than the one block, because they had better cash flow and it felt more comfortable than I still spent $1 million. I just spread it across a whole lot of crappy properties instead of this one block that I shudder to think what that would be worth today. 4 or 5 million? I don't know. And it's a common thread. I remember talking to Jason at one point, and I was looking at those dugouts in what's that little mining town in Cooper Pedy. I was looking at the dugouts. They dig underground because it had like a 15% yield, but they're not a good investment. And so how did you go with Horsham, and what happened? Have you still got it?
No, it was terrible. I made all the wrong mistakes. So I bought in 2005. I had to sell up in 2011. I was, to my credit, I was promoted a few times at the bank, but not the money I was hoping for. And I ended up selling everything in 2013. No, sorry, bought in 2005, sold in 2011. And look, I was left with the debt after I sold. So I sold it a little bit above what they were worth. The Horsham property, not so much. I think it's still worth about 100,000 today.
Oh my goodness. You're probably lucky it's worth 100,000.
Yes, absolutely. But look, I got stung with the exit fees, and oddly enough, about 6 months after I had sold up the properties, they then stopped doing the exit fees. So I got stung with them. If I had have waited longer, I wouldn't have had to pay them, but I didn't know that.
What sort of fees did you pay? How much? Do you mind me
I
asking?
think I was left with about 20 grand for an exit fee. So,
yeah, it was
but for
pretty
someone,
rough.
it was, and for someone just starting their career, in your early 20s and all that sort of stuff, it was a lot of money. So it was quite a big blow. And look, it took me till about 2013 to recover from that, paying off credit cards, paying off small loan, and just trying my best to get on top of everything again. And it was a hard slog.
So that's I know probably when you're young, that seems like a long time, but that's actually a phenomenal result to dig yourself out of, out of an experience that I'm sure taught you a whole lot of stuff, right?
Absolutely did. Yes, it did.
And, we don't always want to learn by trial and error. And I guess that's why you're here with Positive Real Estate. I'm taking a pun, I guess. Right. Yeah. And you talk about your lone wolf experience, but it didn't throw you off reinvesting in the market again, though, did it?
No, it absolutely didn't. It just made me think like, oh God, that was rough. I've got to do it again, but how am I going to do it?
Right.
Yeah, look, I was determined that I had to get back on the horse. Like I had no clue how long it was going to take me. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I just knew that I needed to get back up. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And then we segue into quite a life-changing event for you, really, because you met your husband in 2013. So on the tail end of kind of sorting yourself out, and tidying up your debt, I guess that was in line with when you first met your husband. So tell us a little bit about this, because this is a significant challenge that you went through. And Alison, I must say thank you so much for sharing this story. And I know it's important to share this so other women and other people experiencing challenges can have some faith that they'll come out the other side. You've just got to find whatever it is within you, that strength within you to build up and just to get through, because it does get better. But tell us, I'm being deliberately vague because I want you to tell your story. So handing over the reins to you, your floor. Tell us the story.
I'll sort of give you a timeline with what happened. So I met my husband in 2013. He knew I had big plans for buying property again. I was always talking about property.
Love that about it.
Look, he had some debts of his own. I couldn't really be critical of that because after what I had gone through myself, like I understood. Look, in 2014, we were married and I had my first child.
No.
So by the time we got to 2015, I'd finally saved enough for a deposit for a house. And this time I knew that I had to find a house, where I was gonna do better than what I did the first time around. So I managed to find one. Yeah, so I managed to find one that was under the sale price.
Fantastic.
So I got some instant equity with that one. So look, basically the 2nd of January 2016, when everyone was still recovering from their hangovers, I attended an open house and put an offer in. So I got a large 4-bedroom house, 2009 build, suburbia in Brisbane, 25 k's from CBD. So didn't get pushed too far out this time. Look, they wanted offers for over 540, and I knew that it was sold in 2008 for 520, and I managed to get it settled at 481,000.
Oh, congratulations! So, lesson
learned,
eh?
Absolutely, and I was over the moon, and the best part, I was back on my horse. So.
Fantastic!
I was very happy. So.
Let's just do the numbers there quickly, because what did you make? So if it had it was advertised for offers of over 540, and let's
540.
say, yeah, so let's say maybe you would have got 530 if it wasn't on the 2nd of January. What agent does a
Well, the funny thing is the agent was a friend of the seller, so he was doing it as a favour.
so that there is your problem.
It wasn't greatly advertised, but I managed to find it. I thought I was good getting on realestate.com, and I was like, oh, I'm going to see this one.
Well, you made about 49 grand if we say, if we take 10K off the top, hopeful price, and say maybe, it was worth about 530, then, you made 49K. Not bad.
Yeah. Too bad. So I was quite happy.
Yeah.
But look, I think it was then that my husband started seeing the dollar signs in his eyes. Before we had even settled, he'd gone out and bought a new motorbike, a brand new, it was a $60,000 truck with all the bells and whistles. So he also insisted on life insurance for both of us, given that we had a child and we had, just the house and everything else. So, I went along with that.
Yep.
Yeah, seemed reasonable. The house, which I still own, settled in February 2016, and our second wedding anniversary was in March 2016. And it was during this time that my husband drugged me with extremely strong prescription sedatives in a few glasses of wine, and he attempted to end my life.
Right.
So I was still awake when he attempted to suffocate me. So I managed to fight with everything I had. Like I had that feeling of like, this is how I die. And something in me just went, fuck no, not today. So, the adrenaline kicked in and I managed to fight, sort of crawl my way out with him still on top of me, trying to still suffocate me down 2 hallways, past the kitchen, through to the front door. I managed to get down on the floor, and mind you, I was still naked at the time because I had a bubble bath before that, and wedding anniversary and so forth.
Wasn't it? It was your anniversary, and you'd planned a special night.
Yeah, that's right. So I managed to kick out the glass in the front window because I knew that if there was broken glass, either someone was going to hear it or it would look bad. So I just had in my head, kick glass, did that. That sort of threw him off guard. I actually couldn't scream, even though the media reported that I screamed for help. I couldn't scream. My mouth was black and blue. There was no oxygen in me.
Yeah.
So from there, I managed to reach up somehow, grab the door, ripped it open. I don't know how because the security chain was on, but somehow it came off. I actually ripped the timber down the side of the door.
Wow.
There was glass in my feet.
Yeah.
And I managed to run down the street to neighbours that I saw that had a light on. There was one of the neighbours was out in the garden. He was talking on his phone, and I ran up and basically barged my way through their front door, down their hallway, and just stood there naked and shaking and bloody feet pretty much. They called the police. They called the ambulance. Look, my son at the time was meters away in his cot, and it was then that I thought, oh my God, my son.
Of course you did.
Yeah, look, I try not to get too upset. I have told this story a lot now, so but look, I heard his car leave, and my instant reaction was, oh my God, he's taken our son. So I was very fortunate that the police came very quickly, the ambulances came very quickly. Several vehicles. They managed to race down to the house and get my son and return him to me and then take me to hospital. So, I was very grateful for that. And, I'll carry that guilt too, that I didn't think about my son when it was happening. All I heard was, in my head was break the glass, get out, get out, get out. That's the only thing that happens when you're under attack is just, just to save your life.
It might have been a very different outcome. I'm sure you did, without platitudes for you, hun. You know, we do the best we can with the information that we have on hand and our resources at the time. And at that time, it was important for you to get out. I mean, I don't think there'd be anyone hearing that story that would think otherwise.
Yeah.
I mean, amazing story. And I think what's so amazing about you is that you are so resilient, and you are such, I don't know if I like this term, I don't know if it resonates with you, but, you know, survivor. To get through that. I mean, even your resilience the first time you did your property, which pales in comparison to obviously that experience, because that came out of the blue. There were no triggers, there were no warning signs. It wasn't a classic domestic violence situation where, you know, there'd been a run up to this. It was out of the blue for you. You were totally unaware. So the person that you loved and trusted, that was the father of your children, you were having your you know, romantic night planned, you'd had your bubble bath, and then this happens. So how do you even begin to overcome that? And where did you go mentally after that? Because I think that's what's so important about this story.
Absolutely. Look, I woke up the next day in hospital. I was in complete shock for a long time, in that like hypervigilant fight or flight, you know, amygdala flying off the handle, in hospital with my son. I needed surgery because the glass in my feet, it was actually went in so far, it was grinding against the bone. Yeah, it was the most painful experience when they do a tap to. Yeah, it was terrible, most painful thing I've ever felt. But and look, $24 in my pocket, in shock. And the worst of all, the mortgage hadn't been paid either. First payment didn't get paid. I had no money. He had made more money than I did. You know, so I didn't have access to that either. It was sort of all up to me, and I rang Centrelink. Even though I was employed, I rang Centrelink to see if there was any assistance, and they said, "Oh no, we can't because your husband earns too much money." I thought, you're kidding me. He might have earned more money than me, but he certainly spent more money than I did as well. And given the circumstance, you know, that there should have been more help there, but there wasn't. Look, it took me a very long time to emotionally get past that. You know, I was in fight or flight for probably a solid 2 years after that. You know, I went through therapy, spoke to the psychologist, you know, got as much help as I could. It's funny how your friends and family, like, they do help, but friends that you would normally think would help, it's sort of sometimes they step away because they don't know what to do. Other friends that you weren't as close as sort of suddenly come out of the woodwork and they're there for you. It's a very it's a very strange experience. Like, so much in your life just changes overnight when you go through something like that.
It's I think it's a heavily researched space, obviously, and I'll lump this in with domestic violence as a whole. And you and I were chatting earlier, and I think it's a really important topic, and why, you know, I'm so grateful for you for sharing it, because I think it's 1 in 3 women in Australia experience some kind of violence, which is nuts. And I'm not excluding violence, you know, that other people in other sectors and other types of violence, but in particular, we're talking about domestic violence today. And you know, it's no secret, I'm very open. My very first marriage, there was domestic violence, and it was new and a surprise to me. I didn't come from a background where there was violence. I came from a very loving household, and it was, you know, this stuff can be very insidious. In your case, it was a complete surprise. In my case, it was a slow descent into it, and before I knew it, it was there. And I think the more we normalize talking about it and the challenge that it is, the more it takes away the stigmas around that stuff. And, you know, the strength of women that come out of situations. Like, I was fortunate, I had somewhere to go. I had financial support from family if I needed it. You know, there were, it was easy, I'll say, for me to get support and help and to extricate myself from it, compared to the challenges, you know, some women have. So how did you get through this experience, Alison? Because that's a very intense experience that must have devastated a lot of trust. And I mean, I can only imagine where you could end up with an experience like that. So tell me, how have you dealt with it, and how do you frame, because you've gone on to do some amazing stuff, which we're going to talk about. So how do you frame that for yourself? How do you build that resilience?
I had little people watching me, so I had to be mum.
Yeah. Amen.
You know,
Yep.
that was a huge driving force, that I knew I had to be strong for something more than myself.
Yep.
But I was also very fortunate that, you know, my employer was able to provide some housing for me as well, because I couldn't go back to that house.
No, of course not. Yeah.
No, it was, it was rough. And, I guess I was just lucky that I was able to get into a house. Look, I went through the whole thing where for some nights I had to stay as Jane Doe in a hotel at first after I got out of hospital.
Yeah.
I was in hospital as a Jane Doe, just for privacy reasons. Yeah, and, you know, I accepted food hampers at one stage just to put food on the table. Just,
absolutely.
You know, to make ends meet. I did whatever I had to do. I sold a lot of my stuff on Marketplace. I saved every penny that I could, you know, and I went through all the trauma, I guess, all the feelings, all the emotions. You know, I saw a psychologist regularly. You know, there were a lot of triggers at first, and I'm lucky that I've been able to work on those. I didn't want to be inside. When I got back to work, I actually did a lot of it outside just to be in open space and not feel that I was inside with doors shut.
Right. And unable to get out.
So
and so then at some point you made a decision. You made a decision. I can see from my notes here, you started investing in some stuff around your mindset, and you started focusing on changing stuff again for yourself. So you've always had this innate driving force to, I'll use the term better yourself, but you know what I mean, to improve or to grow. I mean, I'll use growth's a better word. Yeah,
look, when I was younger, you know, I used to love going to the seminars in person and listening to the guest speakers. And you know, I saw Dr. John DeMartini on stage, and his story is just, it still brings me to tears, you know, about what he's achieved. And you know, and all the books I used to read when I was younger about personal development and about finance, you know, it's all encompassing. And I knew that I had to get back to what I used to do before my marriage. So I started doing that and started listening to Dr. John DeMartini, his podcasts and all that sort of stuff. And and then look, I'll backstep and look, everything went through court, Supreme Court of Brisbane, for the trial, for what had happened to me. My then ex-husband, because naturally I put in for divorce. I still had to wait 12 months before I could do it. 2018 went to court, so you had to wait, you know, 2 years before you could even get closure on that. And then after that, I went through court, made sure that the children are with me, the chattels are mine, my car is mine, all the finance settlement, the house is mine. And that was, fairly logical. I had paid for all the deposit. He hadn't made any of the payments.
Yeah.
All that sort of stuff. So after that, started getting back to that personal growth, and I started watching webinars again. And before I knew it, 2020, we were all in lockdown. And I knew that I had to sort of get some help with what I was going to do next. I was lucky that I knew to get a depreciation schedule with my property. I knew to get good tenants in there. Unfortunately, I couldn't claim depreciation until everything went through court, so I missed out on the first couple of years.
Right.
But because it was a quality property, there's still some depreciation even now. So
awesome.
I guess that was lucky, but look, I'm rabbiting on a little bit, but look, I did somehow come across PRE. Started watching that and thought, that sort of aligns with what I wanted to do, because I'd watched some other, I'll call them property gurus. Look, and none of them sort of resonated with where I was at. They all wanted you to already have a lot of equity, already be making six figures. And most of them wanted you to start with setting up a trust account, and just, none of them mentioned that it actually costs to set up a trust account, and you have to manage it and all that sort of thing. And I'm just like, that's not where I'm at. And when I found PRE, for sure. And when I found PRE and I had my my free Zoom consultation with Todd the next day, like he just blew me away with all his raw honesty. Like there was no bullshit. And it didn't matter what financial position you were in, you could start straight away, look at goal setting, look at where you needed to go. Look at everything down to your daily budgeting, like really the nitty gritty you could start with. So I just went, you know what, I've been through hell and back. I've already, been in debt before. I've already lost properties before. I've nearly died. I've got one chance to make this life a good one. Let's just go for it. So I was like, sign me up. We're doing it. So I was really happy.
And
so look,
sorry, you go.
I was just going to say 2020 turned out to actually be a blessing in many ways, because I was able to spend the time at home getting back to myself and signing up with PRE and just getting inspired and moving forward again.
Oh, fantastic. And which is amazing considering everything you've gone through, and that it's all so fresh that, even that you're operating as for all intents and purposes, if there is such a thing as normal, like a normal walking, talking human being, when you think, that was a massive experience that I can only begin to imagine the ramifications that, it must have. And so to get up, to put trust in people again, to look at moving forward, that you've kept that property, that you're able to separate that and go, well, it's still a quality property. I'll turn it into a rental property. It can work for me. So what have you done since joining Positive Real Estate? Where are you at on your journey now?
I actually looked at a few properties that came up that were available, and naturally you fall in love with them all, but knew I couldn't afford them. I was realistic in, at least I hope I'm being realistic in what I can afford nowadays, and also what I can afford on my own journey to provide for my children. So
absolutely.
Look, Todd's been excellent in mentoring and being realistic, and Hayley as well. And I at first wanted to go for the deal at Beath and Loeb.
Yes,
in Victoria. And look, I'll tell you the truth, maybe it's the debt collector in me, but I do the occasional drive-by when I can, just to check out the block and where it's at and what's around. But didn't get to buy that. I actually managed to put down an expression of interest for an ARIA property. So I'm very excited that I will hopefully have my ARIA unit settling at the end of 2022 or maybe early 2023. So
that's amazing. So and which ARIA one did you buy? And do you mind me asking? Because ARIA
Riviere.
Sorry, which
Riviere.
one? Oh, Riviere. Fabulous. Because for those of for anyone watching this podcast that maybe isn't familiar with ARIA, they really are a very, very special developer that does amazing work, and I'm so glad that you got a fabulous unit with ARIA. So that'll serve you very well long term. Fantastic. And so that settles, sorry, you did say 2022?
End of 2022. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, so look, I'm very excited that. It's funny because, when you speak to a lot of people, everyone says, the thing we all hear, don't invest in units, don't get off the plan, it's too risky, they always go down, don't buy near the city. Well, mine's not in the city. It's got the history, it's got time in the market, it's a great time to purchase in the market. It's awesome. Quality property. I'm more than confident that it's going to do well. So I'm very excited with my decision to get my second investment property and head towards the 1% club, because guarantee I'm going to be gunning for my third as soon as I possibly can.
I do not doubt that for a second. If I know anything about you in the short time that you and I have had brief chats, because like you said, your coach is Todd. I don't personally coach you, but you are very determined, and I think your determination and your resilience is, I just know that's going to equal the success that you choose, which will be fantastic. And it's interesting too, because we do often have, it's a great point you bring up about apartments. We often have these preconceived ideas that certain type of property doesn't do certain things, and that shifts and changes with markets. In my portfolio, and I think I've coached around over the 14 years about 700 clients, and I've seen apartments do some amazing stuff for people. I've seen houses do really well, and I've seen now townhouses coming to the fore as well, becoming a very popular option. But it's a common theme, and you'll see me talking about these common themes that I'm always looking for. That is, it's quality. And if you can buy quality, whether it's an apartment, whether it's a townhouse, whether it's house and land, whatever it is, if it's quality, long term it serves, is what we're finding. And I think congratulations, because you've certainly bought quality.
Thank you.
And got a couple of last questions for you. What are the biggest lessons that you've learned? Have you had to encapsulate? I can see you've got two here in my notes. So do you want to share your biggest lessons with me?
Don't do it on your own. It's not just a saying when you say get your 6-star team.
Yeah,
absolutely get your 6-star team, and don't just let it be friends and family that might have the best intentions, but might have biased ideas about, it's risky, we don't want to see you get hurt. Are you crazy? You've already lost property before. Didn't you learn something? I did learn something. That's why I'm doing it again.
You learned what not to do.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And it's important. I hope that, hopefully some other people can learn from my mistakes and, get some mentoring, get people that they've done it before, but also they're still doing it. So they're current with the market, get good financial advice and also be active every day. Like I'm almost to the point where I think I'm probably being a pest. I'm always waking up to do morning coffee chats with Jason. Because I learned a long time ago, it might have even been Dr. John D. Martini, to model people that you aspire to. And, if Jason can get up every morning and do the talks, then I can get up every morning and all I've got to do is listen. How easy is that? So I make sure that I'm there, I'm present, I'm involved, and I'm inspired every day, constantly thinking about my goals and where I want to be. And it sets me up, for a great day as well.
That's awesome.
And the only other thing, the second lesson I'd say is back yourself. You absolutely have to believe in yourself that you can do it. You can move forward. You can survive. And it doesn't matter how many people tell you can't, because I have been told constantly, since what happened to me, that I can't do things. I can't afford the house that I've got. You won't be able to keep your job. You'll be too unstable. What rubbish. You won't be able to travel. You won't be able to do this. You won't be able to do that. I've at every turn, it just has inspired me to prove everyone wrong. I've done it. So back yourself, believe that you can do it. If someone tells you can't, tell them, watch this space. I'm going ahead. I'm doing it. So yeah,
it's awesome. I just love your spirit. You're just so, and this is going to sound bloody chocolate box, but you are so inspirational, and it's awesome that you're so open in sharing this, because like I said earlier, we don't talk about this stuff enough. It's so important.
We don't, and no. Shouldn't be taboo. We should talk about it, and we should learn from each other as well. We should share stories, and we should learn from each other's stories.
100%. And I'm going to get you to not be prepared for this question, because I don't see it there on the notes. So I'm going to put you on the spot, unless I've missed it in the notes. So if you had advice for young Alison, going back to, 18, 19, 20, what would be the advice that you have for young Alison today?
Oh, it would probably be to focus on myself, to focus on my goals, what I really want in life, and don't get swept up in relationships, and sort of align yourself with what he wants to do. Just really spend that time in getting to know yourself and getting to love yourself, and really decide, what do I want to do in the world. And I think I would have, if I had have really spent more time on my own, I think I would have realized that there were other choices for me to learn in other ways.
Yeah, I understand. Oh, we got a little person.
We do have a little person. Shut the door. Okay.
All right. Well, we'll let you get back to your kiddies. All good. We've got lots of people that have family. Everyone understands. Well, thank you so much, Alison, for sharing today. Truly inspirational, and you're so bloody strong. And just wishing you every success, hun. I really, from the bottom of all our hearts here at Positive Real Estate, we wish you, an amazing. For whatever's in front of you, that it is amazing. And I'm sure with your resilience and ability to create these goals for yourself, I'm sure you'll get there. I really do have faith in that.
Thank you. I really appreciate the support. I love all the podcasts. Yours, now I get to be in one. Oh my God. It's Jason's podcast and his coffee talks, and Andy Fenton with Wealth, Wine and Wisdom, and Sam's podcasts. I never miss one of those. Never. Love them. There's just I've found my tribe with PRE, and I'm really glad that I joined up, and I'm here to stay, so you can't get rid of me.
No, we wouldn't want to either, and we're absolutely wrapped. You're part of the tribe. So thank you again, hun, and I think that's it for now. Thanks very much.
Great. Thanks, Tab.
Take care. Hey, thanks for listening to Property Investor Tales. Remember to subscribe so you get notified every time a new episode drops. As you can guess, I love hearing people's property investor tales. So if you'd like to share yours, then please get in touch with me via email at propertyinvestortales@positivementor.com.au. We would also love your feedback, and I would appreciate a 5-star review over on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Remember, you can watch all of these podcasts over on YouTube at Positive Mentor or at positivementor.com.au. Until then, take care, happy investing, and bye for now.